This is the Moots Vamoots CRD that I have been lucky enough to race at the Inferno event. 2 days, 480 kilometers with 12,000 meters of climbing down the length of the French Alps. If you want to check out the video of that little adventure, it's on GCN now, but right here, we're going to talk all things titanium. Moots will be no strangers to you, I'm sure, if you're a GCN Tech regular. We have been lucky enough to ride their bikes before and in fact visit them at their HQ/workshop/factory in this super cool mountain town of Steamboat Springs in Colorado. They've been building exclusively titanium bikes for 30 years, so it's fair to say they're kind of the masters of this material. Now, the CRD, well, it stands for Complete Race Design, so that gives you an idea about the ethos of this bike. Moots say that they've selected their most advanced tube set yet for it. So it's pretty light, 1.4 kilos for the frame. So it's obviously not down in carbon territory, but for titanium, that's pretty impressive. And it's also really stiff actually as well, laterally. Moots describe the ride quality as light and crisp, which it sounds like a fine wine to me. The tubes that they've selected are butted internally. You've got 3/2.5 titanium vanadium alloy for the main frame. Then they've got 6/4 3D printed dropouts here as well. The 3D printing apparently is to add a bit of extra stiffness into the back end of the bike and also help improve caliper alignment. So disc brakes obviously can be a bit finicky, so by having 3D printed dropouts, it means that they are completely bang on every time. As always with titanium, it's more than the specs. There's something about the finish. The first thing I'll turn your attention to is this welding. Now, again, having seen the bikes being welded in real life, I know the care and attention that goes into it, but when you just look at them, they're more like jewelry than some kind of, functional bit of sticking tubes together. Absolutely incredible. And then also this brushed finish, which feels very Moots. There are various different spec options if you are lucky enough to be buying a Moots. This one here is the Apex finish, which adds a little bit of a premium, but it's super duper cool. One of the things I like most though about this brushed finish is the fact that when I was there visiting the factory a few years ago, there was a small sort of group of frames that had come back from previous owners that were effectively being refreshed. So they were going to go back in the bead blaster, get this matte finish put back on again, and they were good as new. 10-year-old frames that were leaving the factory for the second time, looking as they did the day they left in the first place. Amazing. And now the Vamoots has been in the range for a long old time, and this CRD is the update to the RSL model. And it's been updated in two key areas as far as I'm concerned. So tyre clearance is now up to 32 millimeters, but perhaps the most significant change is the fact that all the cables are now routed internally. So that's using the Chris King Envy system. So therefore I've got Envy bars, stem, and the Chris King headset as well. So the way it works is the cables are routed through the bars into the stem and then between the fork steerer and the outer bearing race. So they're routed around the edge of the steerer tube and then in. Now, the other update that it's had to have in order to keep those cables all internal is a slightly larger bottom bracket shell, but that's enabled Moots to go for the T47 bottom bracket standard as opposed to the BSA threaded bottom bracket. One for the nerds out there. There's a lot of Envy on here. So we've got an Envy carbon fork, and then, as mentioned, the Envy stem and bars as well. So that's to get that integrated cable system on there. So that's the Aero stem we've got on there, and then also the SES AR bars. I've gone for a 120mm stem, as you can see, and 40cm wide handlebars as well. We've also got an Envy seat post too at the back. And then these wheels, super slender SES 2.3 wheels. Without doubt, these are climbing wheels. So just 1,270 grams for the pair. They are tubeless specific, but any eagle-eyed viewers will notice that I do not have tubeless valves on here. So I've got tubeless tires, but I decided that I didn't want to have to worry about fixing a flat with a tubeless setup. So even though it's faster and I know all the advantages, I've stuck tubes in there because I figured if I'm on my absolute limits on the top of the Col de Galibier, I just want to be able to bang a tube in without faffing around with a load of sealant. So that's why I've done it. Controversially, perhaps, I'm waiting for a phone call from Alex Payton. Also controversially, I've put Pirelli P0 4-season tyres on here. So not optimal for these conditions, but again, I was thinking if the weather took a turn for the worse, as it often can in the mountains, I did not want to be stuck at the top of the Col de Galibier and have to tiptoe my way down. So I've stuck the 4-season tyres on there just in case the weather came in and I could rail it down the descent still as fast as I could. So that is why they're on there, 28 mil. They don't plump up super wide actually, because these rims are just 21 millimeters wide internally. Now, a frame of this caliber, I feel, deserves the top-end group set. You can choose from a variety actually on Moots' website, but I've got Duray on this one. So this is the 12-speed semi-wireless setup. And I was very glad to have a compact chain set, not gonna lie. So 50-34 chain set, 11-30 cassette at the back. So not a super duper low bottom gear, but it was absolutely what I needed to inch my way up those climbs. Then I've also got Shimano Duray pedals on here. And then the brakes, interestingly, this one comes with a 140mm rotor at the back and 160 up front. So 140 rotor, arguably you don't need as much braking power at the back, so all the pros run this setup. And also 140 rotor at the back keeps the weight down. Saddle is my ever trusty Cellitalia SLR Boost. This one has tie rails, which seems fitting, doesn't it, on there. Then my Wahoo out front, so I've gone for the larger element Roam option. I went for that for two reasons. Firstly, for the slightly increased battery life over the small element Bolt, but actually mainly for the larger screen. So because I was riding roads I'd never ridden before, I was flipping between the climbing screen and the map screen really frequently. I was using the map screen to help me get down descents as fast as possible, taking tips from Adam Yates, name drop alert there. And then the climbing screens were super useful to help me gauge my effort. I didn't have a power meter on here, so I was using a combination of the gradient, the altitude, and my heart rate, because I didn't have much better to do on super long climbs. So I was keeping myself occupied by working that out as well. But yeah, that was super useful. And then I had it set up so that you could change the screens using the hidden buttons on the top of the Shimano Di2. So I didn't have to take my hands off the bars as much as I otherwise would have done. Now then, lastly, you can see my GCN Elite water bottles in here, but these bottle cages, again, more titanium goodness from Moots. There is just something about this material, it's just incredible. Now, I would just like to say a huge thanks to Moots for supporting the production of these videos and also supplying me with this bike. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of amazing things with GCN, but undoubtedly one of my highlights was railing down the descent of the Cime de la Bonnette on this bike at what felt to me like warp speed. It was absolute pleasure, it's got to be said. Now, get involved in the comments section. Let me know what you think about the bike and about the spec on here as well. Be very interested to read them. Also, give this video a big thumbs up if you like this bike, as I do.